Welcome to the deep dive. We're plunging into, well, that ever-evolving digital frontier today. It's a place where innovation, regulation, and personal privacy often collide.
Family.
And we're asking a pretty big question, one that really cuts right to the heart of this space. What happens when just building a tool? What if that could be seen as a crime?
It's a really critical moment we're looking at. Our focus for this deep dive is the recent legal action. It's coming from the U.S. government, specifically the Southern District of New York, or SDNY,
Right.
and it's against the developers of Samourai Wallet. That's a Bitcoin wallet specifically built, with privacy as a core feature. This case, it brings up some huge questions about the future of open source software, digital rights, and honestly, the very nature of privacy in our digital age.
And to help us navigate all this complexity, we're leaning on a really critical and analytical article. It's titled Samourai Wallet Developers Targeted Full Breakdown of Latest Indictment.
Yeah, it's a great source.
It really is. It weaves together legal analysis, community commentary, and gives us a look at how the wider Bitcoin privacy movement is reacting.
So our mission today is basically to unpack the details of this new indictment. We want to explore the technical arguments, the legal ones too, and really get a handle on the broader implications.
For open source, for financial privacy.
Exactly. For the whole crypto community, really.
Yeah.
We're aiming to, distill the most important bits of knowledge from this whole situation.
To help you navigate what can feel like a lot of conflicting info out there.
Right. And hopefully gain a clearer picture of what's truly at stake.
Okay, let's get into it then. The first really crucial thing to know is that this legal fight around Samourai Wallet, it's ramped up. There's a new updated indictment filed by the SDNY against the devs.
That's the latest twist. This new indictment, it pushes out the timeline for the alleged criminal activities.
Okay.
And maybe the most eye-popping part,
Okay.
it massively inflates the alleged laundered amount. We've gone from $100 million up to $250 million now, $250 million.
Wow. And the article we're looking at, it sounds pretty skeptical about that $250 million figure.
Very skeptical.
It suggests this jump might rely on what, like fuzzy definitions of crime proceeds or maybe iffy blockchain analytics?
That's the core of the skepticism. The analysis points out how figures like that can sometimes be, well, massaged. Maybe counting the same funds over and over as they go through a mixer.
Ah, okay.
Or just having a really broad definition of proceeds that scoops up transactions maybe not even directly tied to illegal stuff. It flags this potential reliance on methods that might, inflate numbers to look good for the prosecution.
Rather than just reflecting actual criminal money.
Exactly. More about effect than pure fact, potentially.
The indictment also seems to hammer on Samourai's supposed lack of know your customer procedures, KYC.
Right, that's a big focus.
What's the article's angle on that, especially given we're talking about non-custodial wallets here?
Well, here's the interesting part. The article stresses that KYC isn't actually legally required for non-custodial wallets like Samourai.
Because they don't hold the funds, right?
Precisely. They don't hold user funds, they don't hold the private keys, they just provide the software tool. But the indictment, it treats this lack of KYC almost like a major crime itself.
As if they were obligated.
Yeah, as if they had a legal duty they failed.
Yeah.
And the article sees this as a really key part of what it calls a strategy of legal overreach.
Okay, so legal overreach. If the article is framing it like that, like software devs are being treated as criminals just for building tools someone else misused, what kind of precedent are we talking about? What's the worry here?
The article argues it could set a really chilling precedent. It basically shifts the blame, doesn't it? From the person using the tool, maybe for bad stuff, to the person who made the tool, even if the maker had zero control over how it was used.
So it could stifle development.
Absolutely. If this view sticks, it could scare off developers from creating any software that might potentially be misused, even if the main purpose is totally legitimate and the developer wasn't involved in anything illegal.
That's a big implication. Now let's pivot to the technical core of the indictment, because this is where the article thinks to find some pretty significant problems.
Yeah, glaring issues according to the analysis.
The claims, it says, show a basic lack of understanding of how these non-custodial wallets and privacy tools actually work.
Exactly. One of the, frankly, most head-scratching claims is the SDNY, saying Samourai's coordinator server generated new addresses on behalf of users.
Implying they controlled the keys or funds.
Right, implying custodial behavior. But the article flat out refutes this, says it's technically impossible for a non-custodial wallet.
So what's the technical reality then?
The reality, as the article explains it, is that non-custodial wallets let you, the user, generate and control your own private keys. It happens right there on your device.
Not on their server.
The server might help coordinate things, like in a coin-join mix, but it never holds your keys, never creates keys for you. This misunderstanding seems, well, fundamental, doesn't it?
It really does. A pretty big disconnect if you're trying to build a legal case around the tech. And then there's this fee math issue. It almost sounds like a typo.
It's quite something.
The government claims Samourai pocketed $4.5 million in fees from $2 billion in transactions through Whirlpool. Whirlpool being their coin mixing service, right? For privacy.
Correct. That's the privacy feature. But the math.
What does the article say about the government's calculation?
It points out what looks like a basic arithmetic mistake. The article says, look, 5% of $90 million is $4.5 million, but 5% of $2 billion, that's way, way more. It's $100 million.
Okay, that's not a small rounding error.
Not at all. And the article doesn't just see it as a simple mistake. It flags this huge discrepancy as potentially really insightful.
How so?
It suggests either strategically inflated figures, maybe, or just deliberate confusion being sown. Either way, it raises serious questions about the accuracy and integrity of the evidence being put forward in a formal legal document.
Which is a pretty big deal for anyone watching how these cases unfold. Not a great look.
Definitely not.
So moving beyond the text specifics and the numbers, the article also dives into these broader legal, ethical, philosophical concerns.
Right.
It strongly hints that this case might be less about actual justice and maybe more about making an example, specifically targeting privacy developers.
And what's really striking, and the article highlights this, is that despite these huge dollar figures, $250 million in chain analysis supposedly tracing funds,
Yeah.
only the developers are being charged. Not, apparently, any of the actual alleged criminals who supposedly use the wallet to launder that money.
That does seem odd. Why? Does the article offer a theory on that imbalance? Like, what's the strategy?
Well, the piece suggests the government might be going after the source. Targeting the toolmakers themselves could be a way to scare off others from building similar privacy tech.
Ah, send a message.
Exactly. A message to the wider open source community, the crypto world. Build tools like this, and you could end up in our sites. Regardless of your intent, regardless of whether you were directly involved in crime.
And connected to that, there's this, as the article puts it, bizarre addition of conspiracy charges. Conspiracy to distribute controlled substances.
Yeah, that seems to come out of left field. The connection appears to be simply that someone who was reportedly a drug dealer also reportedly used Whirlpool.
That feels like a stretch, connecting developers to drug dealing just because a user was involved.
It does seem tenuous, especially without direct proof the developers were, in on that specific drug activity. It adds to that feeling of trying to pile on charges.
Which brings us to maybe the most fundamental battleground the article highlights. This whole code is speech argument.
A huge one.
The idea that writing code is a form of expression-protected speech. So developers shouldn't be punished for writing open source software any more than, say, a pen maker is responsible for libel someone writes with their pen. Why is this argument so critical here? How does it tie tech to basic rights?
It connects the whole case to this long-running, really important debate about the First Amendment in the digital age. If code is speech, or a form of it, then prosecuting developers just for creating open source tools that other people then use, maybe for bad things, maybe for good, that potentially violates their freedom of expression.
It turns the act of creation itself into a potential crime.
Exactly. And that could have massive chilling effects on software development, on tech innovation, not just in crypto, but everywhere.
The commentator in the article even suggests the government seems to be flailing legally. That increasing the time window, bumping up the dollar amount, maybe that's a strategic play. What's the article's read on that? Desperation or a tactic?
The piece leans towards it being a calculated tactic, likely aimed at putting immense pressure on the defendants.
To get them to plead guilty.
Probably. Rather than necessarily reflecting stronger evidence. By jacking up the charges, the potential penalties get scarier. It makes going through a long, expensive trial seem much riskier, even if you believe you're innocent.
It's a known prosecutorial strategy, right? Especially if the core evidence maybe isn't rock solid.
It is unfortunately quite common.
But okay, despite all this intense legal heat, What's really fascinating, and the article points this out too, is how resilient these open source tools often are.
Absolutely.
The tools Samurai built, they're living on through open source forks, right?
Yeah, that's a key point, and it speaks volumes about decentralization. You've got projects like Ashigaru Wallet combined with Whirlpool Terminal V1. They've integrated the Whirlpool functionality.
So the privacy tool is still out there, still developing.
Exactly. It keeps the tools accessible, keeps them evolving. It really echoes that whole spirit of Bitcoin resilience.
Yeah.
Think about BitTorrent.
Yeah, despite crackdowns.
It still exists. It adapts. The underlying tech, the idea, it just persists. You can't easily stamp it out.
And the article mentions the new wallet even supports building your own dojo node. Can you quickly explain what that means for people?
Sure. A dojo node is basically running your own personal Bitcoin server. It connects you directly to the Bitcoin network.
So you're not relying on anyone else's server.
Right. You get full control over your privacy, your transaction data. It makes using things like Whirlpool mixing truly decentralized, run by you, for you.
How does this kind of adaptation show the community's response?
Well, it's a perfect illustration, really. When a central point, like the original Samurai developers, gets targeted, the community pivots. The focus shifts to more decentralized, more permissionless ways of doing things.
Getting away from single points of failure.
Exactly. It underscores that whole philosophical drive behind much of this movement. Financial sovereignty, individual empowerment, keeping control of your own privacy and money, not needing to trust or rely on intermediaries.
And speaking of community taking action, the article finishes by highlighting some real-world stuff too, like the SAT market event in Calgary. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the SAT market sounded amazing. It was a real-world physical marketplace, but operating entirely on Bitcoin.
Only Bitcoin.
Only Bitcoin. And you had all sorts of vendors, local butchers, artists, dentists, even banks were there, apparently, all doing business in BTC. And what really stood out was this strong emphasis on non-KYC peer-to-peer trading. They were using an app called Vexel.
How does that work?
It connects buyers and sellers based on existing trust circles, like friends of friends. So it facilitates direct trade without needing identity checks for every little thing.
It really embodies that philosophy in a practical way.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Financial sovereignty, decentralization, permissionless commerce, all happening right there in a physical market. Super tangible.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this deep dive up. The key takeaway from the article seems to be that this Samourai Wallet legal action is being painted as a kind of desperate overreach.
Yeah, potentially lacking solid legal footing.
And maybe the bigger point is this idea that privacy tools, open source software, you can't really stop them even if you target individual developers.
Precisely. The code is out there. The speaker in the article really emphasizes that the Bitcoin community needs to keep pushing back, educate people, build alternatives.
What kind of actions?
Well, things like starting local initiatives, like that SAT market, learning new skills so you can contribute to building the ecosystem, and crucially, supporting developers who are seen as wrongly accused, defending privacy rights.
It's really a call to action then.
Definitely. A call to protect the core principles of open source and digital privacy.
Which leaves us and you with a final thought to chew on. In this increasingly digital world we live in, what is the future balance going to be between individual privacy on one side and government oversight on the other? Especially when these lines get so incredibly blurry, the lines between code, speech, and alleged crime.
It's a tough question.
It really is. Something important for you to consider long after we finish this deep dive.